Hello, my friends. I am John Laspina, the Carnivore teacher. Today we're going to talk about omega-6 fatty acids. Well, we need fat to be healthy. In animal fat, when we eat it, dietary animal fat, we are giving ourselves nutrition. Fat is not just fat. There's a lot of nutrition in fat for our body. Fat is lipids. Fat is part of cholesterol, which basically fuels a lot of our body. It really does. And healthy fats come in omega-3, omega-6. There's also omega-7 and omega-9. But omega-3 and omega-6, that's the sign language for 6, omega-6, we must acquire omega-3 and 6 in the foods that we eat because our body doesn't make it. So where do we get omega-3s and omega-6s? We get them from animal products, healthy animal products. We get omega-3 and 6 from beef and other ruminant animals, from lamb, from pork, from poultry, from fish, from eggs. We get them from the fats that you cook with. Butter, ghee comes from butter. Chicken schmaltz, bacon fat, pig lard, beef tallow. You're getting healthy omega-3s and omega-6s. Now, some of them are higher in omega-3s and some of them are higher in omega-6s. Most fats tend to be higher in omega-6s. And what we need to be healthy for inflammation to occur appropriately and not inappropriately in our body is we need a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s. And if you're eating the standard American diet or the standard world diet, you're getting 30 or 25 omega-6s to 1 omega-3. And that causes inappropriate inflammation. Inflammation will occur in your body where it doesn't need to occur. Some people experience back pain and swelling and joint pain. That's inappropriate inflammation because you are eating too many omega-6s and not enough omega-3s. So to remedy this, we want to eat foods that are close to a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. And those foods are beef, lamb, pork, poultry, fish, and eggs. Now, pork and chicken, if the pig and the chicken ate grain, they're probably going to have a higher omega-6 than omega-3, which is not good. So if you can buy poultry and pork that is from a regenerative farm where the farmers are conscious about the feed and they try to have the animals go out into the pasture and eat what's wild. You know, the pigs go out and eat and forage what's wild. The chickens are eating the bugs and the worms on the ground so that their meat and their eggs are a higher omega-3 and not so high of an omega-6. And that's how you can have your pork and your poultry be healthier. And when we talk about eggs, we talk about buying pasture-raised eggs for this reason, because the pasture-raised hens were able to leave the chicken coop during the day and walk around the land and eat the bugs and the worms on the ground. And at nighttime, they know to go back into the chicken coop and sit down and lay their eggs. And the eggs have a higher omega-3 content and not as high of an omega-6 because they were not fed genetically modified grain like a lot of the chickens are in this country, in the big processing plants. Beef is king, in my opinion. And a beef cow has a rumen, which is one of the chambers, one of the 4 chambers in their stomach. When they eat their grass or anything they eat, it has to pass through the rumen and it has to pass through the other 3 chambers before the digestion occurs and the muscle and the fat grow on the animal. And so beef is healthier. If a beef cattle's eating genetically modified grain part of its life, it kind of gets filtered out in the rumen so that when we eat the meat from beef cattle, from ruminant animals, the omega-6 is not as high as it is in pork and poultry. It's a little higher, a little bit higher than a totally grass-fed and grass-finished beef cattle. That's a beef cattle that eats grass most of its life and eats grass until the day it's slaughtered, that meat has a lower omega-6 and it's closer to a 1-to-1 balance with omega-3. But it's not that much higher if they were finishing beef cattle off in grain. By definition, all beef cattle eat grass, so they're all grass-fed. They are, until maybe the last 6 months or 3 months of their life. They will be herded in and they will be fattened up eating grain, oats. Does the same thing to our body, by the way. Grains, oats, sugars fattens our body up. So they're fattening up the beef cattle so they're bigger and plumper. And when they slaughter them, there's more volume, so the farmer, the cattleman, they make more money. And that raises the omega-6 a little bit more, but not that bad because they have that rumen, which filters it out. Isn't that interesting? Now, when we talk seafood, I always buy shrimp and sockeye salmon that is wild caught. It was caught in the ocean or in the rivers and seabeds that they weren't feeding them genetically modified feed. You know, if you buy farm-raised fish and farm-raised shrimp, they keep them in this enclosed area. There's like chicken wire on top, and they drop the grain. The chickens walk on top of it and poop down in there, and they eat that too. And it's a very different fish. It's higher in omega-6, lower in omega-3 because it was grain-fed. It wasn't wild-caught. It was farm-raised. So wild-caught is what you want to look for on the packages. Yes, you're going to spend more money in grass-fed. Yes, you're going to spend more money in pasture-raised eggs. Yes, you're going to spend more money buying the wild-caught shrimp and salmon over the farm-raised shrimp and salmon. If you have the money, it's worth it. It's worth it for the seafood. And I think it's worth it for the eggs, personally. The beef, not necessarily, because it has the rumen that filters out the toxins. So I recommend that you keep your omega-6 as close to 1-to-1 to omega-3. So what do omega-6s and omega-3s do in our body? They do a lot of stuff, a lot of things. But one of the things the omega-6 does is it sounds the fire alarm. If you have an infection or some damage somewhere in your body, it's the fire alarm that calls for inflammation. You know, inflammation happens when there's an infection, and then all of your white blood cells and all of the little things that happen to go and rush to the area where the damage is to repair the area that is caused with appropriate inflammation. You want appropriate inflammation. We all have rips and tears and scars and scrapes and damage on the outside and the inside of our body from time to time, and you want to have some omega-6s because the omega-6s signal the repairing. They signal appropriate inflammation to repair the damage. Now, omega-3s are anti-inflammatory, and they're the ones that put the fires out. They're the ones that do the repair. They're the good ones. You want as much omega-3 as you can get. You don't want a ton of omega-6s because then they're signaling the fire alarm too much, too often, and then they generate inappropriate inflammation, causing body aches and pains and cramps, swelling, back pain. So you want omega-6, it's not the demon, but you want it in a healthy ratio. Omega-6 to omega-3 in a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1 or a 3-to-1 ratio. If you go higher than 3 omega-6s to 1 omega-3, you're getting into the area of inappropriate inflammation. That happens when you eat the standard American diet, by the way. So when we eat animal products, I'm a carnivore, or if you're a ketovore, or if you're just eating ketogenically, you're not consuming seed oils. Seed oils are polyunsaturated fatty acids that are extremely unstable. By definition of how they're created in the factory, they're already rancid, and they're extremely high, exorbitantly high in omega-6 fatty acids. By the time that gets put into that bottle, after they cleaned it with hexane and deodorized it and degummed it and processed it with ultra high heat, it's already denatured. The oil has already broken. And when you cook with it, or if you eat any processed food or fast food or standard world diet food that has soybean oil, canola oil, sunflower oil, rice bran oil, peanut oil, margarine, Crisco, if it has any of those in the ingredients, you are getting seed oil. You are getting all that omega-6. and it raises your ratio out of balance, and it sets you up for inappropriate inflammation in the body. So we eat a ketovore or carnivore way of eating because we're getting the healthy omega-6s and omega-3s directly from the animal fat and the animal meat, the butter that you're using. And that's mostly saturated fat. There's unsaturated fat and there's saturated fat, but the animal products are more saturated. They're stronger, they can resist light, heat, and time, and they're delicious, and they're stable in your body, and they don't create that inappropriate inflammation. So you're getting as close to a 1-to-1 balance of omega-6 to omega-3. This was about omega-6 fatty acids. We must get them in the food we eat, but we don't want to have too much, or else we're out of balance. So we want to get our omega-3s from eggs that are pasture-raised. We want to get our omega-3s from fatty fish like wild-caught sockeye salmon. Omega-3s are so healthy. Now, before I leave you today, I want to talk about getting omega-3s from plants. There's DHA and EPA that we get from pasture-raised eggs and fish and some meat, but there is ALA that you can get from certain plants. And ALA converts to the other omega-3 in our body if your body's able to do the conversion and if the body's able to convert enough of it. And a lot of people don't have the ability or they don't do it well enough. So you could be eating an enormous amount of these plant foods thinking you're getting your ALA, which is an omega-3, but your body can't convert it into the DHA or EPA that it needs. So those people who talk about getting their omega-3s from plants, you're barely getting any. Animal products is where it's at. Ladies and gentlemen, eat well so that you can look and feel well and become that optimized version of yourself. Have a great day.